In this video we're going to talk about laser tattoo removal in a bit of more detail than we've done before, and we are covering this particular subject on our online training platform because we felt that there is not enough detail information about laser tattoo removal or laser tattoo fading procedures. So in this particular video we're going to summarize the content of that particular page, which we're going to show you right now. So we're going to jump directly into it, and so we're going to locate it first so you can see where it is later on. What this location can change over the months and years, but we'll try to keep the permalink the same, so keep an eye for a permalink. But at the moment is under tattoos, and then you hover over tattoo removal and you find laser tattoo removal there, and you click on it and it takes you to this particular page, which we're going to summarize in this particular video. So but if you want to know more details, then you can take your time in order to read it. So the first picture in the first part talks about the frosting after tattoo laser tattoo removal, which occurs all the time, and is a phenomenon that takes place all the time, but it's transient. It lasts only a few hours, and then the area becomes red, and then the following day then you're going to start getting the blistering, which we're going to show you later on. But this is a picture now, just showing you. We're going to magnify it slightly so you can see it better. The following picture just talk about the wavelengths of lasers and the depth of penetration. Now the shorter the wavelength, or the higher the frequency. So this is higher frequency than there. This is a lower frequency, it's higher frequency. So the higher the frequency, the shorter the penetration of the laser light inside the skin. So what you'll find in tattoo removal devices is that the frequencies around this region, so that you can penetrate inside the dermal layer. So remember once again what we talked about, the laser tattoo, the tattoo section, where we showed you where the tattoos are located. So we're going to go back into that. Okay, and so this is why we're selecting this sort of wavelengths, and also the other, we'll talk about more about the wavelengths, but depending on the type of color, then you have to select certain type of wavelengths and so on. This is a picture that we've seen before, that shows the difference between the broad spectrum light of IPLs and lasers. So in lasers you can choose one or a number of frequencies of light, whereas in the IPL you've got a broad spectrum, and some of it gets absorbed by the upper part of the epidermis in the skin, and then other part of it goes inside a bit deeper into the skin, and the longer the wavelength, the deeper inside the skin it goes. And that's one of the reasons why IPLs are used for air tattoo, air removal, permanent air removal. But also, just to give you an overview, also lasers can be used for air removal as well, because all you do is just apply the wavelength that goes inside the skin and destroys and it causes enough heat inside the dermal layer to destroy the hair follicle. There's another picture showing the laser tattoo removal basic principles, and it shows you how the wider the area of the laser, the more the pigments are scattered, and so on. But you can read more about this particular section on this page. This is a video which shows you clearly the frosting effect of acne scar fading treatment. So this has been in place just to give you an example where the principle is the same, but the application, the physics are the same, but the application is different. So you get the same type of lasers, but applied on another area of the body for another application, which is in this case is acne scar fading. And then we're going to go in there just to show you another laser in action for mole removal, just again to show you how the bursting effect is quite similar. You get the same sort of frosting, but the application is different. This is a Fraxol laser. It's just a brand in there, but it's basically a laser which is going to go back just to show you a bit the basic gests in there, and it's quite simple. Fraxol laser, which is a brand, works and around about these frequencies, so it goes a bit deeper, and the application is mainly for skin tightening and skin rejuvenation. So again, we know a lot about lasers, and we find them to be, in terms of physics, quite simple to understand. This is another picture showing you where the tattoo pigments are located inside the dermis and inside the skin, which is to say the dermis correctly, yes. And the epidermis is there, which is free of the tattoo pigments. So we have to go, as we mentioned before, inside the dermis, whatever we do, even with lasers, especially with lasers, in order to try and destroy these pigments, and therefore having the tattoo to fade. This is just a picture showing you how a laser penetrates inside the skin, and then that depth of penetration is dependent on the wavelengths and the I'm trying to get rid of this particular window in there, and the power level of the laser as well, the length of the burst of that laser, and so on. So, but once again, as we've seen before, the main parameter to remember is that the lower the frequency, the deeper it goes inside the skin. The higher the frequency, the more superficial the effect is going to be. And this is another picture showing you, it's not the exact model, it's just to give you a rough idea of how the laser tattoo removal process, which is fading process, I think is better than removal, because every time you just go through a fading treatment using a laser, the tattoo is faded, it's not removed, unfortunately. And sometimes you can remove them within one treatment, but you get the scar immediately after the area has healed, so you get a trade-off. But this is the basic gist of it. This is you hit the pigment with the laser, and then it gets scattered partially, and the phacocytes tend to eat part of the tattoo and get rid of it. And there's another picture showing you a model of the laser tattoo treatment, the laser tattoo fading treatment. And this is again just an overview, because it doesn't occur exactly that way. Only part of the tattoo is fragmented, and part of it is reabsorbed, so it does not all go away in one session. This is another picture showing you the same thing, pretty much, but again, it's just made to give you, it's just there to give you an idea of the basic physics. But once again, every time you go through a laser treatment, then the light goes inside your dermis. It tries to hit as much of that pigment as possible, try to scatter as much as possible, and then that part that is scattered, then it gets eaten away, and the tattoo gets faded after each treatment a little bit. But again, just a reminder, this is not exactly what happens, because only part of the tattoo is scattered, not all of it is. And what happens is that the inner part of the tattoo, the one where the ink is actually more inside the dermis, is more difficult to break, and therefore more difficult to get rid. Then we're just going to in this particular picture we're just showing you a graph, power against time of a standard laser for tattoo removal, and this is a pulsed Q switched laser, which has got many applications in aesthetics, not only tattoo removal, as we've seen in the previous videos. This is a video that you can take your time to watch. It shows you one of the many tattoo fading sessions that are shown online. You can see the classic frosting of the area. And we're going to go down, and this is another picture showing you some characteristics of different types of lasers. We've got the Ruby laser that works at that frequency, 694 nanometer, and so on. So different types of lasers have got different names depending on the material that has the light. It generates the laser light, and that laser light has normally a particular wavelength and a particular duration of the Q-switched laser. In this case, say if it's less than 40 nanoseconds, and so on. But this is a bit more technical. You may not want to get into more technical. This is a good graph because it shows you the degree of tattoo ink absorption versus the wavelength of the particular laser, and that shows you how, depending on the color, then the absorption is different, therefore the fading is different. And this is one of the downsides of lasers, and you can see it clearly in this picture, where you can see how different types of lasers have different target colors, and they sometimes find it extremely difficult to get rid of certain colors like light blue, for example. So lasers can find light blue very challenging and almost impossible to remove. So which is not true for other techniques like plasma, etc. This is another picture showing you that exact concept. As to say, after each session, only the colors that more easily absorbed by the tattoo get removed or faded, and then after you go a number of other treatments, then you get other colors that get faded, and so on. And the last one is green or bright blue, etc. So the problem with laser tattoo removal, although they're very expensive, they're not the best methods to fade all types of colors. This is a downside which is very well known about laser tattoo removal treatment. So, and there's another picture showing you a practical example of that. As I say, you can see the brighter colors still being present after the tattoo removal session, whereas the darker ones are mostly faded. So that's, once again, we want to emphasize, is very peculiar to lasers, and there's nothing you can do about it. So sometimes manufacturers market certain lasers in certain ways to say that they remove all colors. What they do, they combine different frequencies in one laser, so to try and say that they remove them all, but in actuality this is not what happens in real life. So then this is another picture showing you where tattoo failed. That is to say, once again, consistently we've got that green-blue area. So green, light green and blue do not get faded by lasers in general as well, so they get left by the treatments, and then so on. So you can try and find other wavelength to resolve that problem, but the inherent physics of laser tattoo removal just make these colors quite challenging to get removed. And this is another graph showing you the wavelength against the absorption coefficient of different types of lasers. You can see the Ruby, the YAG laser, and so on. But once again, you can find all the details on the web page. This is just a video to summarize it. So should you not want to go through the whole web page, which is quite in depth. So laser treatments for tattoo removal always are always painful, no matter what. No matter what manufacturers say, there's no way around it. We haven't found an actual laser which is not painful. So you do require a number of require some numbing of the area in order to be quite comfortable. And then there's another thing that is not advertised by tattoo removal salons. As I say, the bleeding which occurs after laser tattoo removal, and there's nothing you can do about it. If your dermal layer is quite rich in blood vessels, you're going to get it. There's nothing wrong about getting a bit of bleeding. It doesn't mean that the treatment hasn't been carried out correctly. It's just the inherent nature of tattoo fading treatments using lasers, which are quite invasive anyway, so you can get some bleeding. But there's nothing to be worried about, because normally the bleeding stops quite quickly. And this is also one of the reasons why we made this web page, so to show you everything, because in the information you normally find online, people just try to sell you the treatment one way or another, so they take out these parts of the nature of the treatment. In this area here, we're talking about the blistering. Again, it's inherent in the nature of the laser treatment. There's nothing you can do about it. The area is going to get blistered 1 to 2 days after the treatment. So the higher the intensity, the more the blistering. This is another blistering after a laser tattoo removal session, or fading session, whatever you want to call it. This is another blistering. There is nothing wrong about the blistering. It does occur every time after laser tattoo fading treatments or laser tattoo removals. There's nothing you can do about it. You can try and minimize it, but it always happens. This is another blistering after laser tattoo removal. There's another example of blistering. You can see the blistering and then the after. So blistering is an effect that is temporary. It doesn't last too long. Another example of blistering and the after. There we've got before, the blistering and after. So it's just to show you that although there's blistering and the area doesn't look that pretty, then the blistering is going to go away anyway. So just to reassure you, even after laser tattoo removal treatments, that blistering goes away. That's another picture just showing you that particular point. As I say, the blistering will fade anyway. This is another good video, because we like this particular video because it's a doctor explaining what you can do to minimize the blistering. So we have a professional talking about the problem openly, and not only talks about it, gives you some tips in order to try and minimize that, so you can watch in your own time. Then we're going to go into the next picture. This is once again, you don't need to study all that. So this is a table that is used to give you an estimation of how many laser treatments you require in order to fade the tattoo to a satisfactory level. We're not going to go into much detail in here. If you want to know more about this, there is a lot of information in detail on this particular web page, the laser tattoo removal page, so you can study it in your own time. But the main gist here is that this is another proof that it's not as if you can get rid of the tattoos in one session. It does require a number of sessions, and another proof that many times you cannot actually get rid of them completely anyway without leaving a sort of mark or another scar, hypopigmentation, etc. Another video of laser tattoo removal you can watch in your own time. And just going to carry, and then the skin types, which are quite important, because sometimes certain clinics try to avoid the olive skin type 4, 5, and 6 completely, because of the hypopigmentation problem that is very well known with lasers. So that's another downside of lasers, unfortunately, that darker skin types are susceptible to hypopigmentation. But that doesn't mean that skin type 1 or 2 are not. They do as well, but the hypopigmentation, when it occurs, is not as evident in skin types 4, 5, and 6. This is a classical type of hypopigmentation after laser tattoo removal. You can still see the ink and the hypopigmented area. And the problem with hypopigmentation is that it's permanent. There's nothing you can do about it other than try and cover it up with another tattoo on top. So this is why we're saying that normally in 80% of the cases, people go through a laser fading session, or a number of them, to fade the tattoo to an acceptable level to cover them up, because it's not a practical way to completely remove them seamlessly. And we're going to carry on, and here is just an example of hypopigmentation after laser tattoo treatments, and some minor traces of the color are present. Another case of hypopigmentation after laser tattoo removal. Another evident case of hypopigmentation after laser tattoo removal, which doesn't happen with other treatments. It's just peculiar to laser tattoo fading or laser tattoo removal. There's another example of hypopigmentation and some ink left. That is a very good video which we found online. We just posted 1, 2, 3, because that gives you the reality of tattoo removal. That is to say, you'll see what really happens with tattoo removal. It talks about also the blistering and the final decision of this very nice lady to cover up the tattoo after she realized, oh, this ain't gonna go away easily. We're gonna get left with a mark here, and every time I go through a tattoo removal treatment, it's always painful. It's not an easy process. I get the blistering. It's a bit of a nightmare in her opinion, and she realizes that she's going to be left with a mark. So you can watch these videos within your own time, so you do understand what the reality of laser tattoo removal entail, and is laser removal are not, and tattoo removal in general are not an easy business. So you shouldn't expect to have most tattoos removed seamlessly. So thank you very much for watching. Should you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch. If you'd like to suggest us certain topics you're interested in, let us know via WhatsApp, email, over a phone, Skype, whatever way you prefer. So many thanks for watching.